that area of focus with recruiting is something that, and you could look at recruiting from high school to college or like high school to prep.
Yeah.
Because that
Yeah.
that's even
Yeah.
come into play now too. And I think
Yeah.
like the more that we can just talk about the, strategies, what the important pieces of it, and not make it feel so overwhelming, is beneficial for everybody because it's just there's so much in our world right now of lacrosse and pretty much, all sports of like, what's the path for me to go where I want to go to be successful and be happy. And
Mhm.
I think like what you guys are doing is great in that front and just being able to, kind of share that, and how we can build off of it, for, like you guys said, the community of the game we all love, um, is just something that's necessary. And,
So
it's
necessary,
a
right?
building.
Like
Yeah. It's like a
it's
building
at a
block
point where
approach.
it's like people just need help in that sense.
Yeah.
And I didn't mean to cut you off, but I think
No.
it's so like it if you don't have a network that you've actually worked on building, right? Some people have a network that they're just thrown into, and some people like build relationships. And I think that's a cool part of this is like when we look at the opportunity, like I'm lucky because I was part of that network, right? But it takes
Mhm.
time. And I think it's really cool to have those conversations and to know why people play the game or a game,
Yeah.
right? It
Yep.
could be any sport in that matter. It doesn't have to be lacrosse, but I think in this specific conversation it is that of like why do you enjoy this? Like why is it something that keeps coming back to you? I don't know. It's a cool way to think about it.
Yeah. And like know, I guess to kind of, add on to that, it was there like an aha moment for you guys, to really like come together to start this venture? Because obviously like we've both been in the game for a long time and we've seen it evolve, but did something, occur, or was it just kind of like, where you've been working that made you think like this is so necessary, to help, our community, in this stage of it, what of wherever it may be, I mean, who knows, from
Yeah,
where lacrosse
right?
started to where it's
Yeah.
going, like right
Yeah.
now, like, this is important, and like kind of what came to that conclusion to get you guys to get it off the ground.
I don't know. Where do you want to start? Drew, you want to go?
Yeah, I mean, I think kind of from my perspective, I think with both Kevin and I, with our extensive backgrounds in, we'll call it education or academics, right? But then also within athletics, we kind of have, or I mean, not kind of, we have navigated this process, in terms of the recruiting process, firsthand as student athletes, right? But then as coaches, administrators, the high school level, and also the collegiate level. And we just kind of saw that there was an opportunity here, to help families, to help student athletes kind of use athletics, I guess I would call it, to help kind of reach their opportunity of going to college. Um,
I
and it
think
was kind
there's,
of, it was
oh,
just
go ahead.
really trying to provide opportunity and provide the resources for these student athletes to reach their dreams. And it was, I think, just kind of a pivotal time in both of our careers in terms of where we were family wise, where we were professionally. We're like, we've known each other long enough. We both see that there's a gap here, in terms of helping these student athletes. And it just was, hey, let's try this,
Mhm.
and let's try to make a difference in these families' lives.
I
Um,
think part of it too is like how hard it is to take that risk to start something, right? And that like we're definitely it took us a while to get to that point, but like let's backtrack and Drew and I talk about this every time we meet with a new family is like we talk about our relationship of like how we met. He came on a recruiting visit twice, right? He came back, and then the second time I was like, dude, he was actively out of school. He's at University of Maryland. I'm like, dude, you either need to come here or not. You can't come visit anymore. Like, you need to
yeah,
buy
transferred.
you need to transfer. So he fucking transferred up. Um, and I think in that sense, it's our relationship too. Like, we were in each other's wedding. My daughter was his flower girl. Like, we've had a 20-year relationship post college. So for us, like we want people to find that opportunity, right? So you're able, like I was talking about earlier, you're able to like build your network or decide like who you want to keep in touch with, and that's important, right? Those are the people you surround yourself with. So I think for us, it was kind of just a time in both of our careers of like we've been in academia and teaching and coaching and love it, but like we also want to provide an experience for somebody that they may not be getting, right? And that's the biggest piece I think on our end that's really hard to put into words or into marketing. I think that's the toughest piece. So takes a little bit to get to know us, but that's I think, and then having kids find that end goal and that end opportunity. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Brett.
And I think like the way that the sport has evolved too, when we were all in high school, like you'd go to like one or two showcases, right? And you would be in a recruiting process, but it was like, okay, I'll find out after these 2 or 3 weeks, who's interested in me or not. But like nowadays, kids have summer, fall, winter, and there's events with club, and then they have their spring season, and there seems like there's something every season for
every
these
weekend.
kids to have to feel like they need to go
Yeah.
or are suggested to go because people are telling them that. But like how do you navigate that with families? Because I think it's such a hard thing because you do hear families being like, and I have talked to players who've been like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm going to 12 showcase this summer, and I'm like, you're nuts.
Yeah.
But like, but if you have that voice, that can help that path. But I mean, like, what do you say to families in this era that we're in, where it's like you're almost like pushed to do almost everything if you want to play at the next level?
We have a kid that
Yeah.
we just started talking to with great family, awesome kid. Um, and he's scheduled to go to 10 events this fall.
Mm.
And we were honest and transparent, like, yeah, that's awesome. Those are all great events. But like you need to plan and you need to prepare. And
Mhm.
the tough part about the fall, I guess the tough part about any part of the year is that, like you said, there's so many events. So you can be at everything or you can just decide the specific ones. This kid specifically is going to a couple recruiting, like major recruiting events, but then also prospect days. So like you want to be able to filter those in, but not overwhelm yourself. And I think that you
Mhm.
have to, that's a piece where parents are a big part in it too. Obviously, there's a financial piece, but also like they know their kid better than anybody. So like be honest with yourself on what events you can go to and what the amount is. Um, and then the financial piece. Sorry, I stole that one, Drew. Go ahead.
No, no, no. I think you're right. I mean, but I think every student athlete experience is unique. All right, in terms of you know, kind of doing your homework beforehand, knowing right, who's going to be at what event. So
Yeah.
if you're going to a prospect day, is there just one university or one institution present at that prospect day, or is it kind of a cohort of schools from a certain region, right? They're hosting it at one institution site. And then in terms of this idea of burnout or risk of injury, right? If you're
Mhm.
attending 10 events in 11 weekends and half of those you're flying to, how do you ensure that your student athlete isn't reaching this level of burnout? Because some of them are individual events, like we said, prospect days. Some of them are these team events. So it's being able to pick the right events to go to that match kind of what your end goal is in terms of the level of play you want to be at, maybe the region of the country that you want to attend, your hopeful university or college, and being able to have those conversations with your family to determine. Kevin said there's a financial component, right? There's a travel component, there's a fatigue component, but we're really trying to find enhanced select events that match what your end goal is in terms of level of play, region, etc. I don't know if that helps
And
you
I
at all,
think
but
there's two facets of that as well. And I think that is what leads into the relationship part because like the first one is for us, and I don't like to call it like a third party, but we're an outside influence, right? So like
Mhm.
we can look at where you're at athletically, skill wise, and what we see and help you direct you to those right events, right? Not saying we're gonna pick them for you, but like saying, hey, here's some you can look at and try and put those in, but also we're not your club coach, we're not your high school coach, we're not your skill guy. We're an outside source that's just reading the data and saying, "Hey, these are the schools you can look at." And then I think there's the other facet of it for us is we have a really cool network of just people that we've been lucky enough to be around. Like a couple of our experts, people that we had come on, one was a sleep expert and one was mental performance coach. And
Mm.
then one was Sean Quirk, new coach at Springfield, as we all know. So I think in that sense, like we're able to connect the dots for you, just for you to make an informed decision, right? There's so much information out there. What does it mean? And I think it's synthesizing that down for people to actually have an approach. And you'd be shocked the amount of kids we talk to and families that come into this with a limited direction. And that's fine. It's almost better that way. But like, they're not even investing in it. So we just kind of push them in certain directions to help. So if that makes
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. And I think kids benefit from having like advocates and supporters, you know, like you guys in the sense of the process, because having that, you know, I think outside voice, you know, where it's not your coach, you know,
Yeah.
that is telling you everything, or your club coach. So like having another opinion, I think, is only going to help you, you know, and benefit, you know, whether it's, you know, about where you think you can play, you know, where like maybe where the best fit could be, but like having kind of that relationship with families, you know, is something that I think is very, um, you know, important these days, because, you know, with the changes with NIL and the way kids are looking at colleges, you know, whether it's, oh, I'm getting offered money to go here or whatnot, but you know, from that standpoint, the way that we see the sport and NCAA and all the rules changing, like since you started, like what have you found to be the biggest challenges, you know, for families or players, in the sense of like, you know, how they're getting started, and then like, you know, where the process is from day one till the day that they find that place that they can call home.
Do you want to go with that one, Drew? That's an awesome question. I could start and then I'll be
Go
quiet.
ahead, start, and I'll fill in for you here.
Yeah,
Yes.
I'll just give like so one of the biggest things, especially with NCAA being changing so rapidly, which in some senses is a good thing, and then some senses we don't know how it's going to play out. Like roster caps, we
Yeah.
don't know, right? So, but that is such a ripple effect that we'll talk about. But I think the part that's so important is level setting with families to start. Like, where are you? What do you know, right? And for us, we know this stuff because we follow it every day, and
Hmm.
it's been fun because it's been changing. Where if you were, I'm not discounting compliance directors in the past, but it was boring. It was just like, hey, did you pass your classes? Good. All right, you're good to play. Do you have a 3.0 or a 3.2? And with the NCAA changing, it's fun for us to communicate that out, because sometimes we talk to schools and they're like, we don't even have confirmation on that yet. So, and then that's like good and bad, right? So for us, that level of understanding where people are starting, so then we can actually educate. And then I'll let you go, Drew.
Yeah, I think it goes back to this educational component. All right. I mean, what is the difference between D1 and D3? What about MCLA? What about NCLL? So it's educating them on the different opportunities that they might have in terms of finding that best fit. You know, I've come into it, and a lot of people, you know, the schools they know are the schools either in their backyard,
Yeah.
or the schools are seen on ESPN. All right. So not, I guess, not understanding or not realizing that there are varying levels of play, and the overall time commitment that those different levels really do entail.
And it's awesome opportunity to introduce kids to new places. Like one of our recent kids that we helped find a home, family was amazing, came into it with a different background and a different sport. And we really were able to just kind of introduce them to what college lacrosse was and
Hmm.
is, right? And that there's so many cool levels to play that they didn't even know about, and they found a really cool spot that they're super excited about, and the kid and the parents. And we really help to just like introduce the possibilities, and then just have the kid drive the car. And that sounds cheesy in a way, but like he's excited because he was a big part of that process. It wasn't just like, hey, here you go here. So I think there's it's back to that relationship, and I think he's a kid that can make waves at the level he's at, because he's at a spot where he's going to buy into what the coach is telling him, and he's going to love playing at that level. So,
But I think also for that unique situation, or for a certain individual, that family has leveraged athletics, right, for a college opportunity
Hmm.
that they didn't
and a
know
cool one.
existed
Yeah.
3 weeks ago, 4 months ago. All right, so they've leveraged the sport of lacrosse through attending some showcases this summer, through doing certain events or attending certain events, they have now provided their child for a opportunity that they didn't know existed.
Yeah.
And they're super excited about, thinking long-term career, professional growth. So
And
that's
it also connects to like the sport specialization piece of it. Like this is a kid who was playing hockey up
Mm.
until his junior year, right? And I think like
yeah,
even we were talking about like kids and practices the other day. I was at soccer practice with my 6-year-old, and the guy I'm coaching was like, "Hey, when's he gonna specialize?" I was like, "No, he's 6. Like, come on." Like, so in that
Yeah.
sense, this kid had the opportunity to go through the hockey trajectory and be like, all right, I found something else that I really enjoy, and I could be really good at it, but I haven't done it long enough. And him picking it up and playing through the summer, he got so much better,
Yeah.
right? Because he already knows how to move. So it's understanding and and also level setting with that family, saying like, this is the level we see you at. You're not going to be playing possibly for somebody on ESPN, but we can guarantee a cool opportunity somewhere. So I think in that sense, there's a lot to be said about the places that offer the sport of lacrosse specifically, but like the roster caps are going to provide some level of trickle down effect, right? And it's already
Yeah.
starting. So we were talking earlier, Drew and I, about like MCLA is a really cool spots. You get big universities, you get amazing opportunities, go to big time football, and you get to play at cool places. So with that, I could see a big growth in MCLA and a higher level of play. Not that it's not already high, but a continued growth. And then we've seen it on the D3 level where the process is faster than it ever was. So fast. And it's kind of sad in some ways. So like I don't want to like scare anybody, but it's also the fact of like just pay attention to what's going on. And I guess we can help do that.
Yeah, and you mentioned earlier about MCLA, like Kyle Hartzell was just the head coach at UT, he just
Mhm.
left after X amount of years, but like you could go there and learn from like one of the greatest, Poles, to ever play the game, I mean
Right.
like
And had a
that
great career. Like,
yeah, and he literally like put them on like the national map, of
yeah,
just like, with their social media and how well they did and winning, like, so I think to your point, a lot of kids have this dream of like, oh, I'm gonna go play Division 1, but like at the same time, there's so much good lacrosse everywhere now.
everywhere.
It's
There's just
changed.
too many kids
Yeah,
playing.
it's changed so much over the past 20, 30 years from a skill level standpoint and opportunity standpoint. Like, there's you could go play great lacrosse, somewhere that's like not Division 1 and still have an unbelievable experience, and like I think like I mean, you look at programs like Springfield, who's got a amazing history of the game, with incredible coaches through it, and now you got Quirk there. It's like, there's just so many good things happening across all levels of lacrosse that families should really kind of keep their, and players should really keep their options open. And like you're saying,
Yep.
like think about the most important pieces of it. Like, where do you want to be? Who do you want to play for? And do you want to play? Right?
yeah,
It's so
You want to
funny
get on the
too.
field,
Yeah, it's so funny that you say that because I was talking with Craig Gibson a little while ago, and like we talked about our classes that we had at Springfield, which were massive, like 18-person classes. And
Sure.
he was like, at a certain point, Kev, like we all might not have come here because there wasn't the amount of opportunities that there are now. Like look
Mm,
at all the schools down in Florida. You look at the whole Division 2 down there, Tampa, St. Leo, all those guys. Then you have um Jacksonville and down and like awesome opportunity with an amazing coach. So it's just like the growth has been there, but it's kind of leveled off, which is like you want to see the continued growth, but I don't know. I think the roster caps could enhance that.
but also it just goes back to finding the right fit for that individual, right? And it's not just athletically, but it's academically, it's socially, it's distance from home, it's
hmm
financially. There's so many components that go into it, and you got to think post playing days, right? Post those 4 or 5 years, what do you want to end up doing? Right? What's going to set you up or provide you with the best opportunities for success long term? So, like you said, Brett, some of these big schools like a Texas or like certain MCLA programs, hey, yeah, you're not playing D1, maybe you're not on television, right? But you're going somewhere, you're having an amazing college experience, getting a great degree, a phenomenal alumni network. All right. So thinking long term, and these are some of the conversations we've had with families. It's you've got to think beyond the field, right? So like I guess what's going off the field. And I guess for me, kind of thing would be a question is kind of in your role, I guess, what role do you see, I guess, parents or guardians playing in, because I know you're all about skill development, all right, and I guess training. What role do you see? Because we obviously communicate and talk to parents on a daily basis. But I guess the question is, what role do you see parents playing in student athletes development, whether that be on the field or off the field?
And I think it goes, before you answer that, sorry, I think it goes back to the fact of like those parents know the kid, right? And they know, they've seen them and they know what their level is. And I'm not saying you can't push a kid past that, but like you need to have that conversation to know where a kid can respond. So
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And I think like from a training standpoint, there's also in that same case, there's never been more opportunity than now for kids to go play and learn, whether it's club, and there's a lot of, skill places that are just, strictly skill. But I just keep reiterating to parents, like, don't worry about the name, who, like the club name or whatever, like go find a coach that you trust and that will help develop your kid, right? And like, and that is in it for your child and not necessarily just in it because, they are, running this massive club business, right? Like and I think that's really hard right now. And which is why like specialized training, I think, has been very high in demand of, amount of people looking for small group clinics, individualized lessons, I mean, just haven't been in it for the past 8 years and doing it for, since college, really at peak and stuff as a coach, but there's now more than ever, like you get emails all the time and texts all the time, like, hey, I need work with my kid. Hey, my kid wants to work with this group. And I think that's kind of, that piece that, and I know we've talked about it, that we're kind of missing is like, you would go to a couple camps over the summer, one being Peak Performance, which was probably one of the greatest lacrosse camps ever, and but those are the places where kids were able to really, spend 2 or 3 weeks and just dial right in. But now more than ever, it's like, you don't have those opportunities because clubs taking over.
and I think even for coaches, even
Yeah.
us, like that's where I learned so much stuff is
Yeah.
going to Peak. I mean, we'd be at campus for 3 weeks and it was
Yeah.
like you got to see the best coaches coaching. So I think there's like twofold in that sense. There's a level of like coach education that takes place just subconsciously.
Yeah. And I think parents do need to, trust the coaches too. I mean, because
Hmm.
oftentimes you'll see parents that, will try to be like more vocal than they should be. Not that, like, obviously, like you want to do the best you can for their child, but like you have to trust the process of like how the coach is teaching them. Like, and it's not going to happen overnight. All these people look for things to happen so quickly. Whereas like you really want to develop your child, like this is like, it takes time,
Yep.
like,
Yep.
Yeah.
I forget, we're having this conversation, but like, you change the pocket in your stick, to something that's a little bit more, easier to pass with. Your shot might look terrible for a few weeks, right?
Yep.
But you keep practicing and practicing and practicing, you'll get used to that pocket and you'll get better with it. It's
Yep.
the same thing with skill, right? If I incorporate, something new to help them with, a change of direction or a dodge or escaping a defender, like, it's gonna, they might stumble a few times, they might not feel comfortable. They may fail on the field and get frustrated. Like kids get frustrated when I'm working with them, and it's like, hey, you just got to trust the process and know that like you keep working at it, it's gonna come, but you can't just expect things to happen overnight, right? And I think that translates to kind of like the story that obviously you guys do too. Like it's a process, right?
Yep.
You're not gonna, it's not day one. It's not gonna be like, all right, this is where I'm going. Like no, you start somewhere and you lay that foundation and you slowly build to it. So I just try to make sure that when I'm doing all my stuff, I try to be as honest and upfront as I can with the families. They're always asking like, what can you do better? And I tell them what can they do better, but I also say, he'll be okay. you know,
Hmm.
he or she
Yeah, no,
he or she will
totally.
be okay. And
Yes.
it's like
Absolutely.
they're almost like this urgency to like, oh my God, like we need to do this because he needs to take his game to the next level. And I'm like, I'm like, okay, yeah. I mean, but you have to put in the work. And like, I mean, I didn't have individual skill coaches growing up, but like I would watch guys, that I would college players, at UMass or, on TV in the early days, go to the field, right, and try to mimic what they did and
Yep.
memorize. And I would work on my shot. I'd work on my shot, I'd work on my dodge. And I just did all that by myself, and I probably would have helped having a coach with me, but like I think if you can take pieces of some of the players that you look up to, and you want to try to incorporate that into your game, like you have to go out there and have some imagination and just go for it and practice and have some fun with it. Because if you overwork yourself and put too much pressure on yourself, I think you'll drive yourself crazy and almost push yourself away from the game. So
Mhm.
But I also think at like with lacrosse, there hasn't been that specific focus on like skill-based coaching, right? If you wanted to be a good corner in football, like you would have a coach who would teach you the steps, right? And I
mhm.
feel like lacrosse is awesome in the same sense that you could still go out and be yourself as an athlete and as a player, but like there's never been that very focused skill work on like, hey, I need you to break down. I need you to do 1, 2, 3. I need your hands to be certain. So it's more of like a technique focus. Have you seen like is that kind of the role that Lacrosse Drive will play long term of just like introducing kids to that formality at a higher level? Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, I think so. I mean, over the years, like I've evolved as a coach and the ways I approach teaching and the ways that I kind of look at how players respond to me when I'm working with them.
Yeah.
And about 5 years ago, I stumbled upon this educator named Rob Gray and a basketball coach named Alex Rama. And Rob Gray is a professor at Arizona State, but it's talking about like ecological dynamics of the way
Yeah.
you teach stuff and how kids develop skills, right?
Mhm.
And I still think you need a strong foundation of like how to hold a stick properly, where release points and how to be adaptive, but like I focus a lot more now on getting kids to try to like read signals with me
Yeah.
and then work off of that and have them rep and find that natural kind of motion and movement to help them figure it out, right? Because I used to be, but I think for like some positions like defense breakdowns, like yes, there's some principles there where you want to have choppy feet, you want to take good angles.
So it's more of a visual focus in that sense, like a
Yeah.
hands and
Yeah.
sight focus, which you're just it's yeah. So you're getting to a level of like actually feel the game, but know that your body's going to respond a certain way, right?
Yeah, I mean every kid's a different shape and size, right? Like,
Yeah.
so you have those tall, lanky guys that can really reach back and rip the ball because they have such a you know, big
And they're
core.
not even really doing it on purpose. They're just their body's made that
Their
way.
body's made that way. Then
Mhm.
you got the short guys that are quick and fast, that have quick releases because their hands are a little bit tighter. Like, I try not to change kids, the way that they've naturally, kind of built their development in that
Yeah.
way. But like, I will say, like, okay, here are ways we can improve it. And like to give you an example, like, I one kid I recently worked with, like he has a really good shot, but once he gets on the run, he has a hard time like he changes direction. He's really quick. He's really fast, but he doesn't sell the defender enough, right? So
Yeah.
like for
Yeah.
me, like instead of telling him to take like 3 steps this way, 3 steps that way, like I'm just saying, hey, I need you to get your hips attacking one way, and then once you see my hips change as a defender, you change direction and increase your speed. Like,
Yeah.
and so like I would do this drill with him where he would run at me at an angle, not straight ahead. And in the last stick length away, I would flip my hips one direction and he would attack the opposite, right? Because
Yeah. Instant feedback.
I want him to start seeing that signals because like he would just run at me and then just like shake and then go. Whereas
Yeah.
like if I'm a really good defender because he's going to play in a really good conference, like the defender's going to break down, turn his hips, and run right with you. You
Yeah.
know, but like if
And I
you want
think
to,
part of that is like why I enjoy working with goalies so much because
yeah,
you have that feedback loop is so much faster.
yeah,
And so many people mess with goalies, like let them be. Just let
yeah.
them like work with what they have at this point. They're already at a point where they're comfortable and just build that kind of comfortable feel.
Yeah, and I think like when you're with your youth kids, and that really young, you can really shape the way, their foundation is. But
Yeah.
if you're working with a high school athlete that is, kind of set in their ways, like it's almost like a golfer swing. You don't want to mess with it because it'll take them years to try to overcome
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
But like there are little small ways you can maybe like get quicker hand speed, right? And speed up their hands or just tell them to start thinking about like, you know, changing planes when you shoot instead of say high to low. Like you know, whether you drop your hands or you don't, like I just want you to change your planes, right?
Well,
Or
that's why like Ryan Brown, one of the
yeah,
best shooters in the game, right? Like he didn't care where the ball was coming from. It was just like, I'm getting it out and I'm
yeah,
finding a way to get it out fast.
yep,
So
yeah, just get it out and like aim for columns, right? And just think about, you know, that, you know, if you have your stick high, yeah, you know, more likely than not, the hardest shot for a goalie to save is when the ball starts high and gets low because you have to drop
yeah,
their body. But like, which is, you know, the foundation, you know, simple principle of the sport. But like,
Sure.
I just think like, you know, and when parents watch me and like, you know, and they'll watch me do these lessons with them, like it does get a little choppy and messy, right? But I'm okay with that because I know the kid's working through it, right?
yeah,
And I'm
yeah,
not, if I could sit there all day and have him catch a pass and shoot and it'll look great, you know, run, catch, shoot. But for me, it's like as a parent, you know, thinking from the parent's lens, like I'm trying to like, you know, build a little bit more, I guess, IQ into it a way, you know, and lacrosse drive was a way, you know, is something that encompasses like drills, you know, for all ages, skill development. And I do a little bit of everything there. There are some stuff that gets technical, like you said, Kevin, right? Because like obviously the way we hold our stick is super important, right? You can't
yeah,
squeeze it. You need to have a
yeah,
nice, you know, it needs to be through your fingers.
Hmm.
But like, you know, and we talk about stuff like that. But when it comes to like really, you know, from a skill standpoint, is like, how can I increase this kid's skill without making it almost too technical, right?
yeah, yeah,
So, and I deal with the college level too, because you know I was an offensive coordinator at St. Joe's like the past couple of years. You know, for me it was like some of our guys were just athletes, and you know they were really raw in the sense of their skill set for lacrosse, and it's like I'm not going to change these guys now, but here are some ways that we can bring out the best in like how they play and the way they're going to do it. Like this guy, let's get him downhill.
yeah, yeah,
No,
Yeah.
one's, no one's gonna keep up
let's
with him
play to
getting
his
downhill.
strengths at this point.
Yeah,
Yeah,
play to his
exactly.
strengths, but like I'm not gonna change a kid just because like I feel like that's the way it's supposed to be played, right? Like
Well, I
I
have a
try.
question for you on that sense. Like, from your experience at the Division 1 level, do you think Division 1 coaches will have the ability to take flyers on kids that are good athletes, right? It has to be the right project, but like
Mm.
because the roster is now 48, are they looking for specific needs and just fill in that gap?
I think it's more of the latter there. I
Yeah,
think they are looking for their needs because with the transfer portal now, like
yeah,
you know, like guys will start recruiting, you know, the portal versus junior to senior high school athletes,
yeah,
right?
Yep.
So I think with the player pool at the high school level, it's going to shrink a little bit as well because of that. And there may be pockets, you know, that at the at that level where you'll take a flyer and a kid that you think you can develop. But I think because it's so competitive now, and like you said, there are so many kids playing, and the talent is so good. Like most of these coaches are like, they want to find guys that can fit a role
100%.
play,
Yeah,
because I mean, who knows what happens in the course of the year with injuries and stuff, but there's still, I mean, even those kids that are proven to be good players that are transfers, I mean, a good college coach is still required to help develop them to be better, right?
yeah,
So
yeah,
I think you'll see a lot. I think you'll see a lot of those athletes, maybe like that are just sheer athletes, maybe, kind of not be that prominent in the recruiting piece of it. Not that they can't get there. But I just think just the way the rules are that, these college coaches are going to look for guys who can fill roles quickly, and
yeah,
who
yeah.
they think maybe can fit a role next year. But I
You
mean,
have to with injuries and stuff. You don't have a full practice squad in some senses. Like there's guys that are carrying 60 to 65 guys. So
yeah,
like you get banged up in the wrong position, you're in trouble quick.
no, and even at like UMass, like we had LSM Greg Scott, who played on the
Yep.
football team. He was a two-sport athlete, but like no one, he was the best, one of the, probably the best athlete on the field, right? Like
Yeah.
he was a starting D midi, he would get the ball in transition for us, get up and down the field. Like he wouldn't stay on offense, but like not the only guy I saw that beat him at one point during the season, like cleanly, was Kyle Harrison. And that says a
Yeah.
lot. You know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah.
Like,
Right.
like he was just so incredible as an athlete. And I think if you're looking at it from like a D-midi standpoint, you know, maybe coaches will take that flag on those guys. But now that the shot clock's in,
Yeah.
you know,
You have to play multiple roles. You have
you
to
need
do other things.
two-way players. Like
Yeah.
you want those D-mid guys to eventually develop to maybe be offensive minded too.
Yeah.
So like I think it's a little bit tougher, but just not that it can't happen. I just think it might be a
Yeah.
little bit more challenging.
We had a kid, probably the best athlete that Drew and I ever played with, kid Chris Sharp at Springfield. I don't know if you ever met Sharpie. Our
Mm.
LSM played. He was at Springfield. They run the triple option, obviously for football, and he had 7 touchdowns in a game against St. John Fisher. He was like
Mm.
on ESPN the next day. I was like, dude, this kid's like the best athlete we've ever played with, and
Nice.
he would pick up the ball and just he wasn't super skilled lacrosse kid, but he would just clear it on his own every
Yeah.
time. If he touched the ball, we're fine. And
Yeah.
like that's almost you need those spots at a certain point to just be like, all right, we're good.
Yeah.
So you need to
But also,
fill
I think
certain holes.
But I think kind of what we were saying earlier with these limited opportunities now, right? Or with roster sizes and maybe not taking a flyer on a kid, it's educating these families. So whether it's families Brett you're working with, families we're working with, that there are less opportunities. The game has grown. There's more players playing, and yeah, there are more programs out there, right?
Mhm.
At the various levels. But it's educating these families that that D1 spot might not be there. All right. And just maybe you're in an event on one weekend and there's 100 kids there at a prospect day, or there's 100 kids down the road. There's 1,000 kids out on Long Island at an event. There's a
I
thousand
think
kids
even
down
the
in
D
Delaware at an
three,
event.
the
Yeah.
D
And
three
so
spot
seeing
might
that
not
trickle
even
down
be there. I
effect.
think that's what's crazy on our end too, is like if coaches see a kid, sorry Drew to cut you off. If coaches see a kid they're interested in, they're like on him right away or sooner than it used to be. So go ahead, Drew,
Yeah.
finish.
No, I was just saying with that trickle down effect, right? That they might not take a kid that a D midi. They're looking for a kid that's a two-way midi. All right. And that kid that's a D
Yeah.
midi might now be at a different level of play. Um, so it just really going back to educating those families that idea of staying patient, but also realizing that there are potentially less opportunities just because of numbers.
Yeah, and I think I'm looking up some numbers here if I can find them. But like to your point, like just because you know you say that there's not as many spots for athletes, there's still there's still opportunity for that kid to go play, right?
Right?
100%.
And like
100%.
and I think I had the numbers right that like between divisions 1, 2, and 3, it doesn't include MCLA, but there's about 3,200 spots open each year, right?
Mhm.
If you look across, if you take the average class size of colleges, right?
Yeah.
But then you have about 60,000 kids playing high school lacrosse, right? And
Yeah.
you think about those numbers, and like you're saying to your point, like it's there's so many more kids playing. There are more programs, but the opportunity to get to that next level is still really
Yep.
challenging. And I
Yep.
think when you put stuff in perspective like that for families, like you hope that kind of gives them an idea of like, what it does take to get there. So and
It's such a hard conversation to have though.
yeah, it
And
is. Yeah.
and it's not hard in the way of like the honesty piece of it. I guess it's hard because parents and families invest a lot of time and they invest a lot of money. And it's not like I feel like sometimes people just expect if I do this, then I'm going to play Division One. That's not the case either, right? So it's like
Mhm.
yes, there's been time and energy and all this stuff, but there's also opportunities at a lot of different places that fit a lot of your checklist. Like we break it down into academic, athletic, and social. You can get 2 or 3 of those. You're not
Mhm.
it's really hard to get all 3 unless you've been able to check a lot of other boxes. Um, so I think in the conversation piece of it, there are tough conversations to be had, right? And you can't shy away from those, but like you have to be confident that you can help a kid find a spot that they look back and say that was really cool. I kept playing the game. Like I would never want kids to stop. And I think that's the scary part as all this stuff continues to progress is like are there enough spots for kids? And there are, but you have to really be thoughtful on what you want and what fits you as a family.
And we also say something we always ask families or the student athlete is, would you be proud to wear that jersey? All right.
That's a
And for
great question.
and for some, they don't quite know what that means. We've got to break it down for them even more. But would you be proud to, to wear that jersey? And I think now in the age of instant gratification, all right, with kids looking for clicks and views and being able to post it on social media, oh, they've committed somewhere. Like, are you really proud that you're going there and you are wearing that jersey, or are you just doing that because that's what society's telling you to do, right? Is it really the best fit?
And are
Yeah.
you excited about that network, right? Like, are you excited
Yeah.
about what that opportunity provides lacrosse and academically, right? Or
Yeah.
basketball and academically, whatever sport it might be, like you're you're joining a group that's pretty cool. And there's people that are passionate about it, which is even more cooler that somebody cares. And I think that is the part that you really need to have people, I think athletes and parents understand that this is something like my parents, they went through 8 years of Springfield lacrosse because my brother finished up and I started. And then when I was done, they're like, well, what do we do now? Right? That's tough for parents too, because that's
Yeah.
their social network. So as a family, it's important to look at the whole package and how much you want to be invested in it. Are you going to be at every game? Are you willing to travel? I think the coolest part, we talk about this a lot in our calls, is I went to school 9 miles from my front door. Drew was in Baltimore, right? His parents, it's when Southwest had like $35 flights round trip. So his parents would fly up for a 1 o'clock game, be home by 6 p.m., 7 p.m.,
Mhm.
right? So you need to look at all those different layers of what an opportunity provides and what is meaningful for you. And as a family too, because I always wanted my parents to be at every game. They never missed a game. So, and either did Drew's. So I think there's a lot of pieces that families can look at and find out what they think is important. Like we talked to one family the other day, and the mom's like, "No, you're not going that far. You're not going past the Mississippi River." So like that was good to know. We had that
Yeah.
in the moment with the family. So um, it's just kind of figuring that out and having those conversations.
Yeah. And I think
Yeah.
also there's so much pressure these days, all right, on the kid, but also on the support system. So most likely on the family, where they're comparing themselves to their buddies, to their teammates, all right, or
Yep.
to a conference foe, in high school, or a club team they competed against multiple times on the summer circuit. And they're saying, oh, he's committing there. Why aren't I getting that phone call yet?
Yeah.
Why am I not getting those texts or those emails? And it goes back to just yeah, this is a stressful process for these kids, but it's also supposed to be fun. And you're making a huge decision, lifelong, lifelong decision. Um, but also realizing, you're trying to find the best fit, but you might get there and realize after a semester that, hey, it wasn't the right fit. And that doesn't mean that your doors are closed. There's an opportunity, like you said, Brett, with the transfer portal now. Or maybe it's a case you go somewhere and you think you really want to play at the collegiate level, whatever your sport may be, and you get there and I don't want to do strength and conditioning. I don't want to do study hall. I don't want to have all these extra commitments. All right. So maybe you transfer somewhere to a school where the athletic commitment is less, or it's even non-existent because you decide not to play. It goes back to really finding that best fit, but realizing with these families there is a lot of pressure that these kids are experiencing. I think
And I
in
think
today's
there's
recruiting.
and I think there's two sides to that coin of the transfer portal that's important is there's the one side where a kid's super successful and has a cool opportunity to move on, right? Go do it. What if that fits you, go. And then there's the other kid who may have been subjected to a roster cap situation and doesn't fit what the coach is looking for. And now they feel like a broken toy. And they're not, right? They're still very good players, but they don't fit whatever the ethos or the ideology of that staff is. And that's a lot for a kid to deal with in that moment. That hasn't been true with the sport of lacrosse in the past. So I think
Yeah.
it's kind of breaking both those barriers in that like you're not always looking for the first side of like I want to move on. No, find somewhere that you want to go. But if it doesn't work out or if there are other opportunities, take your time, be educated. And I think that the fear, like we worked with a couple transfer kids this summer and they're like, I'm not gonna see my boys again. I was like, yeah, dude, like that's real. Like those guys, you're going somewhere else, and you have to deal through that process of it. So, um, it's the transfer market is going to continue to grow and expand, and good for coaches for looking into that. But I think kids can be prepared for that if it is something that happens down the road. So,
Yeah. And like to kind of build off that, the transfer portal, it's ever since it's been opened up like that, I think you know, when it's all started, like no one really knew kind of what was going on, but like now it's starting to take shape. But what you worry about now is the financial piece of it, right? Like
Mhm.
I firmly believe if a kid's not happy at a place, like you were saying, like they should try to go find a place that's like that fits
Yeah.
them, you know, and that's why it's so important to, you know, when you're going through the process, you know, to really make sure that you know the coach, you feel
Yeah.
confident in the coach, you go spend a weekend with the guys, make sure you like the guys. You watch a practice, you make sure you like the way they practice and train. Are the coaches yelling out the same kind of, you know, principles are in practice that you hear, you know, from your coach or whatever, what you want, the way you want to be coached? Because like, I would hate to see the transfer portal be used for just kids for it to be a stop so that they can
No,
go get money from somewhere else.
exactly,
Hmm.
exactly.
And that is kind of making
It's
its
what
way
it
into
could
what
come,
it
come
is.
to be. Yeah.
It's already starting to make its way into lacrosse a little bit, you know, from stories that I've heard. And, you know, I like my dad, I mean, it was a totally different time and era, but like he went to go play at UNH and he was there. And then he told his father, who's coaching UMass, he goes, Dad, I want to transfer to UMass. And dad was like, no, you made a commitment to that coach and that program and you stay. Right. So my
Mhm.
dad stayed there. I mean, again, like that was a family decision, you know, for
Yeah.
him. But
Yeah.
like, now I think the kids, you know, they have to be empowered in some ways because of the way it's all set up. You
100%.
want to make sure that it is controlled so that, you know, when you are going through the process, like you're 95, 99% sure like that's the place you want to go. Because if you find yourself bouncing around every year, every other year, you know, you're probably not going to get that experience that could be so amazing. You know, if you're
And I
just
think
look,
it's, yeah,
yeah,
and I think you have to do a little bit as a family, like and an athlete, you need to do research on the program. I think
yeah,
UMass is a perfect example, right? There, you know this, the limited amount of head coaches. Was it four head coaches in the whole length of the program and family being part of it? And I think that is a piece of it. You need to know as an athlete what you're signing up for
hmm,
and in a good way, right? Like you need to know that the ethos and the mission of that coach and that staff. Now, granted, the way the world is, that coach could leave quickly, but you hope the trend is that coaches stay and make an impact. But as a family, know what you're signing up for.
yeah,
We talked to Division 1 coaches that are struggling. They're like, I don't know if I can keep doing this because I have kids just come into my office and they don't even know what we're about. And like that's kind of sad. Like
hmm,
spend some time, do some research and know why you're interested in a program and know what that program stands for. And there's enough coaches out there that have made awesome impacts. You look at just the Division 1 level, you could pick 10 of them and tell like we could all talk about the differences of each program, how they play offense, how they play defense, how they what their head coach's style is.
yeah,
And I think kids need to do more of that work. They can't rely on someone else to just be like, "Oh, I think this fits you." Like, do have some skin in the game.
yeah,
Also, I think with student athletes, I think with the ability to transfer now, with the ease of access, right? You think of, you mentioned earlier, think of post playing days, think of academic progress, right? How is transferring
Yeah.
impacting your academic career, I guess we'll call it. But also, how is that impacting the APR scores of an athletic department, right? In terms of, their retention points and, meeting specific criteria due to NCAA adjustments and requirements, et cetera. So I think when these student athletes transfer, where do they fall academically? And once they've surpassed that 4-year mark of playing, are they graduating, right? Or are they not graduating? And think of long-term projection, what potential negative impact that might have on an individual's um, career projection.
And be
Yes.
aware of that stuff too. Like as you don't just get into the game like we talked about earlier, being like, oh, I know I want to go to the next spot. It's like what Drew's saying is like, know that you might need to invest a little bit more. And just investing a
hmm,
little bit more will help you. And but figure out what those ways are, right? And it sometimes it's not just smash your head into a wall and keep training. It's hey, focus on your academics and then really that may help you on the field. And it may give you a little disconnect because that coach is just riding you or whatever it might be, right?
yeah,
Every situation's different, but I think there's the understanding of the holistic piece of it is big for us and that's why we go through a big initial consult in the first couple meetings to know where kids are and what majors they want and what programs they're, and like we asked them 2 or 3 times, like, tell us more about it. Because if we set a list of schools that a kid should look at and he says he's interested in this major and he goes there and it's not what he wants to do, that's a tough switch then too. So, and not like that's the worst case scenario, but you need to know when you get into those situations that a high level pre-med or bio or engineering isn't going to fit you if you want to play at this level. You need to know who you are as a person. So,
Yeah, and I think it's reiterating to the high school student athlete, right, at a young age, also to the college athlete, to not allow grades to close certain doors. All right. So if you do want to transfer, or if that might be something that's going to happen down the road, not allowing a semester of poor grades to impact those opportunities. And same goes for the high school level. All right. Starting freshman year, do pretty well academically. So you're not spending 2 or 4 years or 3 or 4 years of high school working on getting that GPA up, right? That's not your GPA isn't high enough to allow you to attend a certain institution.
but at
So
the college level too, like if you pick a place that's too high skill wise and you really go and focus on lacrosse, your academics are gonna falter. They're gonna suck. Like because you're overwhelmed and like you're overstimulated, and that becomes your primary focus. Where we've seen kids that have done that and they struggle through it. And it's like be smart in that situation that if it's overskilled for you, it's not gonna be easy. And a coach is gonna ask you to work and input a lot more. So
yeah, we've told several families, when you get to campus, you've got opportunity to be good at three things. That's obviously athletics, we'll say lacrosse, academics, and socially, which can only really be great at two of those three things.
Mhm.
And depending on the level of play that you want to play at, those will obviously differ, right? As I think we all know. But it's having those conversations with the kids and families. Hey, you've got an opportunity to be really good at three things, but most likely you're only going to be really great at two of those three.
and the
Yeah.
social
Where are your
piece isn't,
priorities?
yeah, and the social piece isn't partying and doing whatever you're doing, what
No.
outside of that. It can be, sure. It's not it better not be a big piece, but it's more of how are you interacting with peers and professors
Yeah.
and people on campus and what are you investing in that game?
Members of the community.
Yes, and there's like you want kids to go somewhere that they feel comfortable integrating themselves in, and there's so many different offerings, right? And if you have certain likes or dislikes, those need to be a priority in the process. Don't just say, I want to go to an Ivy League school because it's Ivy League. And sure, that's amazing, awesome, but why? Like what are you going to do outside of your classroom and what programs do they have? And it's a really simple way to look at it, but it's also like those are important parts of the kid. That's like if you go there, you're going to just kind of be overwhelmed by one facet. It's not fair.
Yeah, and I think, if, as a coach recruiting, like if I see a kid in high school that has a lot of community service stuff, on his resume, or not his resume, but on in his background application, like I'm gonna put some weight on that, because like I
Mhm.
want that kid, because that's part of the culture, is like you guys said, like being a part of the community. Like, how are you getting, you know, grading on campus? Are you respectful on campus? Like it's your interactions with everybody in the athletic department, your professors. Like you're not just like representing yourself, right? You're representing your family, your team, everybody, and like
You're going to a new home. Like
that
that
coach,
you're
yeah,
going to live somewhere. So like are you going to enjoy living somewhere with those
yeah.
opportunities? So
I and I think like just so what you alluded to earlier, just about making sure that like you understand like the level of play and commitment that you're putting yourself into. Like I'll never forget it. Like I think it was the first week of practice my freshman year, and like we had a week's practice, and then we had a Saturday morning, and I felt like I had just run like 1,000 miles. I went to bed Saturday night at like 6 p.m.
I'm
and
done.
I
I'm
woke
done.
up at Sunday at like 11. I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to handle this, because it was so much. But like you slowly, adapt to it. And then I broke my foot in my freshman year fall, and I was on crutches, and I was like, oh my God, this is the worst campus to be on crutches because it's
Yeah, right. Right.
huge.
Right.
But like, like you have to take all those things into consideration of just, like where you want to be, like, what size classrooms do you want, right? Like, I mean, like how, like what commitment do you want to it? Because, no matter what level you play at, coaches are going to demand a certain level of commitment that you
Yep.
have to abide by. And some kids might need to work through college too, and you have to take that into,
Yep.
Mhm.
consideration as well. So there's just so many factors, and I think like you need support to help think about all those things. Because as a parent and as a kid, like my mind's on lacrosse and school, kind of, right? I mean, the kids is probably on lacrosse, for a lot, but I mean, it is school, but you don't think about all those little intricate details that really goes into making that decision. And I think it plays such a key role of making it easier, for
Yep.
them. So,
And I think as you get into that process too, like look at what your sport's non-traditional season is. A lot of guys practice during the day or in the morning, right?
yeah,
And now that carves out certain parts of your day. So I think there's layers to it as an athlete to really enjoy that process, to just be like, is this a place that I can be successful at if they're practicing at 7, 8 a.m. all fall, every fall? Like maybe not. And our games aren't played then, so why would I practice then? And maybe I don't know if that's a big piece, but a kid may be so structured in their schedule that it just won't work.
yeah,
So I think understanding those layers, and we were lucky enough at Springfield, we had amazing strength and conditioning coaches that was a Division 1 level. Our strength coach, I think, is still with the Bills. So like we were we were at a level where people were working with us that you weren't getting at the Division 3 level. And look at those auxiliary pieces of a program that really impact, whether it's injury prevention or whether it's just like actual skill, technique. Dig into the coaches and what they can provide. I think it's important to know. I think it's all these guys, all these coaching staffs are so qualified and amazing. And the Division 1 level is only 70 opportunities, and they're the 70 best coaches, right? So, um, really look at what the style and the kind of gameplay is, and then look at the background of the program, and look at strength and conditioning and sports psychology, and see what they offer. So,
yeah,
Yeah, I think it goes back to the overall college experience. I think like we've been hitting on,
hmm
right? It's does that coach or does that athletic department or the institution allow student athletes to do semester abroad,
yeah,
right? Like you were saying, Brett, some students have to do on-campus jobs or even off-campus jobs or opportunity for internships. Can I do an internship out of season, or is it even possible maybe do one in season? Obviously, depending on the level of play. Um, so it's really unique to each individual and each institution. But it all goes back to I think what you said earlier, Brett. Is finding that right fit or finding that best fit, and
hmm
that's gonna be different for everybody.
yeah.
What inspired this with Kevin? What inspired you? I think I kind of know this to start Lacrosse Drive, or where do you see Lacrosse Drive going? 'Cause you kind of hinted at this on our last conversation.
Yeah.
Kind of like what's your vision, or had your vision shifted from when you came up with this concept or this idea?
So it all started about 4 years ago, just, getting more involved, some of the community lacrosse and thinking about resources for coaches because, I do truly believe like that rec level is where kids are introduced to the sport, maybe grow a love for the sport and stick with it, and they can continue playing out of that. And there's so many parents that are unbelievable volunteers to help make those organizations happen. But I just felt there was a lack in resources to find, drills, or I mean, you can go on YouTube and you can type stuff in, you can find stuff pretty quickly, but there was never a structured kind of place to go find access to drills, skill development, and I think that is kind of what sparked, okay, so I started filming at everything, all my skill sessions and camps and clinics and college practice stuff, and I started putting on my website, and I just was like, okay, this could be a great use, for associations, right? So that's when I started thinking about, the
and
minds.
parents want to help. That's the bet. Like
Yeah,
there's parents that want to help. They just they don't have the means, or it's, I don't, that's not the right word. It's just YouTube. You can consume it, but the application is difficult in some senses, right? So I think
yeah,
providing that access where you're getting a consistent library of media, right, and content,
yeah.
you're able to say, oh, this will work for me. I can take this component. So I think in that sense, for youth organizations, it's amazing.
Well, and I think like when you think about down the road, like where I believe it can go, there's some tools that we're going to be adding into it. I have an unbelievable team with me that help with the website piece of it and just kind of the organizational aspects. But like, um, you know, being able to give it to a group where, they can share content within a group, right? So if
Yeah.
I have a team, I can share stuff with my coaches.
Yeah.
You know, giving, practice plans. Like I would go to a youth practice and like, the coaches and parents, they've got something set up, but they're also kind of just like winging it in some ways. Like here's 100 practices, if you need quickly with full detailed instruction. And I was doing them all by hand.
Yeah.
And I was giving them all by hand. And like, it was, and that's kind of how it all started. And I was like, okay. So like pulling that into lacrosse drive so that you can access lacrosse drills, lacrosse practices for any age group. And then,
We even have people talk coaches in different parts of the countries communicating. So that's really
yeah,
cool because now you have like Long Island, Texas, California, and now they're running the same practice plans and they can say, hey, this works for me or this doesn't.
yeah. And like, I've never wanted to come across as like a coach saying, oh, this is how you need to do it.
Yeah.
It was more about like, hey, here's some added support. Here's maybe another way to look at it. And like I was saying with like my skill development stuff, like I've started doing my drills certain ways with like large group teams, just so it's more like thinking about how to play the game versus like what to do.
Yeah.
So it's less about like, oh, you need this for practice, more of like, here's a quick practice plan with 3 small-sided games you can do in stations, and then a skill development piece, boom, and it's all like laid out for you, right?
Yeah. Sure.
So, that's where I want to see it go, and just really, and then at some point be a resource for families. So like, because part of it, most of it was modeled after a hockey website that is
Yeah.
part of the group that's behind, works with me on it all. And they've been doing it for 12 years. And like what they've built is unbelievable. And it's ice hockey systems. And that's where you envision it going, down the road. But like right
Yeah.
now, it's like really, what can I give for resources to coaches, to youth programs, to maybe make practice go a little bit more efficiently, or help them think about ways to like develop skill with their players. Because, I think just the basic pieces of it, like, like we're talking about, like, how are these 9 and 10-year-olds holding the stick, right? I bet 50% of them are just squeezing it like they're squeezing a ball, right? Like you need to learn how to hold the stick the right way, like, because that in essence will help you cradle. And like from the basic foundations of the sport to like, the most detailed, pieces of how you develop is where I want it to be. And I think there'll be an opportunity for like people to add their own content in there too in some way, right?
Yeah.
So you want to build your own practice plan, boom, boom, you can build your own practice plan. So like, again, it'll take time for that to,
Priceless for youth associations is awesome.
yeah. So I think that's the goal. But right now, I mean, I'm connecting with a lot of coaches to try to get involved because I want it to be community based. Like I don't want it to be my voice. Like Kyle Smith at UMass has done some stuff for me. Foundations Across has done some stuff. Championship Productions. Um, I have some talks with some other D1 and D3 coaches that want to get involved. So like, there's a lot of people that see this and like, oh my God, like there's such a need for it. Coach Quirk has given me a bunch of stuff, and he's unbelievable.
And
So
that's almost how it's passed down, right? There's just
yeah,
like through word of mouth and
yeah. And again, it's not trying to tell people like this is the way you need to do it. It's like, no, here's a resource for ways you can add it into your teachings. Because I've used to do a lot of consultations and coaches clinics for like youth programs, and some parents would almost be like defensive in the sense that like, oh, I know the sport. And I'm not sitting there telling them that like, yeah, you're wrong. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying this is just another way to look at it. Maybe if like I'm the first one to say like I found a modification of this drill from a soccer coach.
Yeah, exactly, right.
I'm thinking about how I can make it work for lacrosse. Like I have that. I want to have that growth mindset of being like, I'm taking stuff all the time from people.
Yeah,
like,
you have to.
And like, so like, it's just, you do find those pieces of it as well. But I mean, again, there's a lot of great people doing great things at that level. It's just with the whole club piece of it, it's a lot of those coaches have moved, are now in the club piece of it because, I mean, it's year round.
I was listening to a podcast with Kerwin the other day, and he said something that was so awesome. He's like, the old stuff is still good. Like
Yeah.
it's always like, well, what are you? He's like, I still run a lot of the old stuff because it works and it's kind of fun to
Yeah.
do. And it's so funny because our lacrosse has gone through like so many versions and still continues to do that. Where
Yeah.
it's like you don't have to run it a specific way. Like it's not just the option. Like you can run different plays. You can throw the ball. You can, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So I think in that sense, it's cool to see the different versions of staffs out there and the different kind of um, I don't even know, structure of play. Do you feel like for your stuff, do you do a lot of like small area games, or is it more individual kid work when
No,
you get into that teaching phase?
I try to do as much small area stuff as I can because
Yeah,
it's like I try to take smaller slices of the game and like,
yeah,
then build it out to maybe some more full field stuff. I mean, when you're working with one kid or two kids
it
at a
has to
time,
be.
there's
Yeah,
only so much you can do.
yeah,
But I always thought to myself when I was doing individual training, I was like, this kid could come out here and shoot all day without me. If I'm
yeah,
here, I have to do something.
yeah,
That's when I started adapting to myself to be more like, how can I make it more of a thinking drill for him versus just like, let's go do this.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
But like
And
with
then you
my,
just throw that constraint at them, and
you
yeah,
throw constraints, and then like with my youth kids, like I try to put them, in small sided games. And then like, with those constraints, you want those constraints to kind of bring out the skill or the concept of like
yeah,
what you're trying to do. Like, right.
yeah,
Like we're going to play a game. We're going to get 2 points for every goal that's assisted. Right. Or we're going to get 2 points for every goal that's scored in the gold medal zone.
yeah.
So like I call the gold medal zone with my kids, like that 5 to 8 yards around the crease. 'Cause
Awesome.
that's a
Mhm.
highest scoring percentage, right?
Yeah,
So now the
yeah,
kids are really trying to score, maybe they're dodging to that area or they're looking for their teammate in that area.
yeah,
But like, you say you can set up small people games, but like what elements are you adding into it to try to bring out what you want to see? And I think that's most important. And like, and it's tough because you really have to think about how to like manipulate the drill. And I've done stuff and I'm like, this isn't working.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
I have to
Not
stop and
using it.
you have to
Yeah,
stop and move on. But I think
yeah,
that's all part of the learning process. And it
yeah,
goes back to our earlier conversation is like the parents have to trust you as a coach to know what you're doing. Cause like we could go out there and do line drills all day and have the kids look great, but like you need to have it look a little messy to get them to start,
yeah,
developing and learning. So
yeah,
I think like the small sided stuff is awesome. And then how do you build off that small sided stuff with those constraints with the added constraints to like really dive into like what you want to see them get out of it. Like they could just play free.
and
You could
build
see what
understanding.
happens.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
Yep. Or you can say like, no, we're trying to use this game to learn how to get to the middle of the field, shoot.
yeah,
We're trying to learn this game for the defense to really learn how to like keep the kids away from the middle of the field, right? So like I want to I kind of think about it more from like a principles based,
yeah,
when
yeah.
as I coach.
100%. Yeah,
And I focus less on like guys need to be in these spots. I focus more on like I want you guys to react to your teammate with the ball and work off
yeah,
of them as
Yeah.
opposed to like you have to go here, I have to go there because when it doesn't go right, kids don't and they don't know how to work out of it. It's something, not great. It's probably
it
gonna
looks
happen.
bad pretty quickly. Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
you'll probably lose the ball, but
yeah.
I want kids to
Or
start
several.
learning how to like play without the ball more,
Yeah,
and like how to react off the teammate with the ball, how to react with your other teammate off the ball, like just
yeah.
little things like that to keep them engaged and keep them playing.
And then a
Uh,
kid enjoys playing that much more.
yeah.
That's the
And
piece
it's
there.
more fun for the kids,
Yeah,
And the
yeah,
one thing I've changed now, like for all my youth practices, we used to like when 3 or 4 years ago, we used to come out and start with like partner passing or something like that. But now
yeah,
we start every practice with a small sided game or like a some kind of like keep away game.
yeah,
So they're either
yeah,
playing like keep away, because they're playing keep away, whether it's a 3v2 or it's a larger scale like 6v5, but they're playing keep away. They're getting passes in, they're
yeah.
moving, their body's getting warmed,
They're communicating. Yeah,
communicating, or we're just playing small sided games where like I just
yeah,
want them getting up down the field playing a little bit, have some fun, and then we'll like get into like, okay, now let's get into some skill stuff. And then we build back out to more of the
yeah,
manipulated games where we're working on certain things that we want the kids to try to grasp. So, and my
Yeah.
my dad is like, I've been coaching with him since, at camps and stuff. And
yeah.
there are times where I can't keep up with him because
That's
his brain works so fast,
my
and
brother. That's my
in,
brother.
in the way that he like manipulates the drills and
Yeah,
he
yeah,
changes things up. And like sometimes the kids are kind of like, what, you know, but like
Yeah.
once they start doing it, you just see them like clicking.
Yeah.
So like I've tried to take that as much as I can from him, but like I can't think as quick as him.
No,
I mean, he's been doing it for, you know, what, 40 years.
a
So like
lot longer.
I
Good for him.
but yeah, that's my main goal with teaching is,
Cool.
you know,
Yeah.
is like setting it up that way for kids just so they can kind of build off their IQ and kind of learn the game from that angle as opposed to just let's work on skill.
And actually enjoy it. When you're able to do that as an athlete, you have a level of enjoyment where it's an evasion game. So you're
Yeah.
playing tag, you're playing capture the flag, whatever it might be. Like,
Yeah.
enjoy that kind of
I mean,
opportunity of the game.
I would even say looking back at college too, like we would always have almost like a pre-practice kind of thing where we would do some kind of fast stick work drill or ground ball drill where we're competing a little bit, like for like
Yeah.
maybe 5 or 6 minutes.
Yeah.
Then we would go right into uh, full field kind of play where it's
Yeah.
up and down fast, you know, and I just loved that about
Yeah.
UMass because it was always like run and gun, and that was one of the reasons it attracted me to
Because you
it.
knew what you were in for when you showed up. You're like,
Yeah.
all right, we're gonna get
Yeah.
up and down right away.
But
So it doesn't matter.
every day was like that, you know, every day from
Yeah.
start to finish, you were going 100 miles per hour.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously that's, you know, a different level, but you know, at the
Still though, it's
youth level, you can still incorporate that same concepts with keeping the kids moving and fast and playing, and still keep them engaged, you know. And
Yeah.
I would do that with the high school kids too if I was out of high school as well.
Yeah.
We're excited to see where it goes, man.
Yeah.
You're
Me too. I mean,
you're building something. It's pretty awesome.
yeah, it's a lot of fun. I mean, it's a lot of time to like, you know, cut the film and film, you know, because I'm doing all the production pieces of it. But you know, I have to yeah, no,
It's
it's good
been
stuff.
awesome. I think for us it's just fun. It's fun to have these conversations because like honestly without peak, like if you're not coaching and you're not like you're not subjected to this kind of stuff and it needs to
Totally.
happen more and
Yeah, but let's totally do it again sometime. I'd love to.
yeah. Let
Absolutely.
us know what you need from us and let's keep it going.
But
All right, dude,
yeah.
we'll chat soon.
All right, guys.
right,
Thanks a
fellas.
lot.
All right.
Be good.
Good chatting.
Later.